Hi, I'm Sean Lynch. I'm joined by Sean Jansen, and this is the Shawn and Sean Show. We're heading into week 3 now. We've started to see what some teams look like, and we've started to see some tough losses across the board last week.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of tough losses, how about your fantasy baseball team? Losing to yours truly in the first round of the playoffs.
I had to go there. At least we made it interesting on Sunday. We didn't go out, we went out kicking and screaming.
My team's still playing, yours isn't.
Right. I hope my little brother beats the tar out of this one.
Before we get going, here's the sights and sounds from last week.
Come on, you gotta flow! There you go! Go! Hold the ball.
Alright, let's take a look back at last week's action. Let's start with Buhach Colony against Clovis North. Sounded like the game was there for Buhach to win, but Big O did his thing when it mattered most.
Yeah, try tweeting out Bolo Runfunmi all night after he scores 3 touchdowns and runs for 175 yards.
I can only imagine when that autocorrects too.
Yeah, I had to do it on my own phone and get away from the iPhone so I could text it out without any problem. But a big game for him, 3 touchdowns, scores on a big 2-point conversion late to give him the 36-35 lead. Probably a game Buhach Colony should have won. They were leading late, crucial turnover on a fumble by Duran there at quarterback that set up Clovis North deep in Buhach's territory for them to tie it. And then when Clovis North took the lead, it looked like Buhach had a nice couple runs to start the frame, and then on a 2nd and 10, they decided to pass, and Duran gets sacked, and that kind of took them out of that drive, and they had to punt, and they couldn't get the ball back. But, I was impressed. First time I've seen Buhach Colony. They were able to do some things offensively. Justin Stefani, I would not want to have to tackle him. He just runs hard, and he had a big game for them, setting them up. And Roy Gutierrez, he does a good job of finishing drives, a good goal line back. He scored a couple touchdowns. Some big plays from Andre Sherman. He returned an interception, 29 yards for a touchdown, and also caught a touchdown. So some good things from Buhach. I think going into this year, we thought that the CCC was kind of going to be Merced and then everybody else. But you look at what Buhach Colony's done. You look at what Turlock's done, beating Clovis West last week and playing Oakdale tough. I think the CCC is going to be pretty competitive because Merced's kind of stumbled out of the gate 1 and 2.
What did you feel Buhach Colony needed to do to pull that one out?
Just turnovers in the wrong spots. It's tough. They were going up against a stud running back, and they were able to kind of keep him from breaking off long runs there in that first quarter. But then the second quarter, he kind of started getting going and got into the rhythm of the game. And I think he's a guy that kind of gets going 10 to 12 carries into a game, and he just got tough. And then, right after they fumble there on that Duran's fumble, the next play he scores on a 39-yard touchdown run, and momentum kind of changed hands right there.
So, looking at the highlights, he did not look like a fun kid to tackle.
And Buhach, they hit him hard a couple times. There's a couple times where they met him at the offensive line. I'm really looking forward to seeing Buhach against Pacheco this week. I think that's going to be a physical game.
Yeah. Speaking of stud athletes, Merced goes down to Edison. Plays them tough, fights back into it. Only a 10-point loss, but it just seems like slow starts against these elite teams that have been their problem. They haven't been able to, really be in the game.
Yeah, and turnovers come back and bite the Bears early. They throw a couple interceptions, fumbles, kind of setting up Edison for some easy touchdowns. They fall behind, I think, 34-7 at halftime. Were able to cut it to 34-24 with about 5 minutes left. Just didn't have the time to come back. But losing to 10 points to the Central Section's top team is not bad, but Merced needs to get one of these big wins. I mean, they got Enox this week. They should win at home, and then next week they face Clovis North. I think that's a winnable game for Merced, and one that, if this team's going to do something in the playoffs, that's a win they need to.
Huge difference being 3-2 coming out of the non-conference and being 2-3. That could be a 4 or 5 spot swing in the playoffs. And that's even assuming they can run the table in the CCC, which doesn't look like a given anymore.
No. And we talked about that. I mean, it was kind of a rough night all around for area teams. Golden Valley goes to Granada, they lose. Atwater goes to Clovis, they lose. I can't remember a night where Merced, Golden Valley, Buhach, and Atwater all lost on the same night. Yeah,
the big 4, and you can throw El Cap into the mix now. We got a big 5. They go out, they set a new school high. got the most points they got. Scored 20 points?
Yeah.
But 5 touchdown passes. They surrender. They go down 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. Once they get into whack play, I think it's going to even out for them a little bit. But right now they're just playing teams with more experience that are kind of exploiting things against them.
If there was a bright note from last week, Livingston beating LeGrand, coming back, I think from a 19-0 deficit to get that win. Livingston's 2-1, kind of the surprise of the season so far.
Definitely the Avila brothers doing their thing. We previewed them to start the year, and they've lived up to the hype so far. I think the defense is what's really got to catch your eye. I mean, they've held some quality opponents under 20 points. I don't think they've surrendered more than 20 points in a game. They pitched a shutout, and then they lost by 10-7 the first week to Hilmar. So. Livingston, big matchup this week for them. We'll see if they can keep that momentum going against another Southern League power. They got Mariposa this week, so good for them. I think it's too early. Some people are going to start panicking for LeGrand. They came out, they threw the ball around. They got 3. Frankie Contreras got 3 quick touchdown passes to start that game. They just need to find their balance. They're not running the ball like they did last year, and obviously when you lose a Ryan Martinez, somebody that's been in the program for 3 years and is familiar with that. But I think their problem right now might be they've had this incredible run of O-linemen, and I don't know that they have the same horses to run the ball the way they have the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, but I think Raul Avra, they're going to figure that out. I think their schedule gets a little bit easier from this point on.
I mean, it looks like Berrien Christian's an improved team, so we'll see how it goes when they square off against them this week. But at the end of the day, all that matters to LeGrand is the Southern League. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a few years ago when they lost that huge senior class coming off the section title. And they took a few losses early on. They were expecting that. They knew there were going to be some bumps along the way. But all they're preparing for is the Southern League. They want the Southern League title. And if they get that, if they're the top team in the Southern League, odds are they're going to have a good chance of making another run in the section final.
Let's talk about the game that you were at last week, Hilmar and Sonora game that ended up going to overtime. Sounded like an exciting finish.
Yeah, one of the wildest finishes I've ever seen. Hilmar takes a 17-0 lead into the half. Probably played their best half of football of the season. First 2 weeks have been really rough for the Yellow Jackets. Jonathan O'Brien responds as you'd expect a senior leader would. He goes out and he goes 11 of 12 for 144 yards and a couple touchdown passes in the first half. Injuries kind of started to take their toll on them in the second half. They're playing a big, physical Sonora team that all they want to do is pound the ball on the ground at you. And Hilmar had 3 of their starters kind of knocked out over the course of the game, and that started to take its toll as Sonora came storming back. Looked like Hilmar might pull it off. They came back again. O'Brien with another touchdown pass in the fourth quarter, giving them a late lead. And Sonora just kept going. Sonora drove down into the Hilmar 4. Hilmar gets a huge turnover. Sonora fumbles it, and Hilmar recovers. But with about a buck and a half to go, it looked like the win was there. And Sonora gets a safety, forces a Hilmar punt, and then the kickoff after the safety. and managed to kick a game-tying field goal with 6 seconds left on the clock. So you got to give Sonora credit. I mean, most teams would have just folded. You drive down, it looks like you're going in for the game-winning score, and you fumble it away. All they need is a first down, and the game's over, and they just kept fighting and didn't give up till the last second. Hilmar got a couple drop passes in the end zone in overtime and had to settle for a field goal. And, I mean, it seemed kind of inevitable at that point in time. The Hilmar defense was just clearly tired. And Sonora was able to punch it in the end zone for the game-winning touchdown. Just 2
Well, I think that heat, I mean, it was a very hot night, Friday night, and I think that played a factor in a lot of these games.
And they got a lot of guys going both ways. Jonathan O'Brien, for example, made his first ever start on defense that night. He played safety, made an interception, but I think they have 8 or 9 guys right now that were going both ways, and then they lost the starters. It eventually took their toll, but I mean, considering what a heartbreaking loss that had to be, given the way the game went and how crazy a finish it was, nothing but positivity from Hilmar after the game. So obviously they saw it as a step in the right direction, and again, they're a team with their eyes on league.
Well, that's the first game where their offense took a step forward. They were able to move the ball and score some touchdowns.
Yeah, and they don't have any natural running backs at this point in time. Running's going to be difficult for them the rest of the way. So the passing game's going to have to be big. They're going to have to be efficient. Obviously, teams are going to be jumping on that. So they're going to have to find ways to get it done. Hit a couple of double moves in the game. And they had a couple guys step up and make some really nice catches. If they can build on that moving forward, it was a better defensive performance than they've been getting.
All right. Before the big matchup with Buhach Colony, I went out to Pacheco High and talked to David Snapp. We talked about this week's matchup and their 2-1 start. Here's that interview. All right, we're here with Pacheco coach David Snapp. You guys are getting ready for Buhach Colony. Talk about your impressions of the Thunder, just watching them on film.
Fast and athletic is they play a lot like us. They're physical. They look like they got some speed and some athleticism. I really like the way they play. That's their practice this week is going to be basically a mirror image, I believe, of how we play, and a lot of the stuff we do offensively is the same, and defensively is pretty similar also. So.
Yeah, I mean, you look at two physical teams. How important is it to win that battle at the line of scrimmage in this matchup?
I think it's the key to the game Friday night. We're working on being physical. I think we play a physical brand of football. I know watching them against Clovis North and Enox, they play a physical brand of football, and I think that's the key to the game Friday night is the play of the Lions on both sides of the ball.
You guys are coming off the win against Dos Palos. What did you like from what you saw from your guys Friday night?
I like the fire that we played with. I like the way we came out of the gate and stepped on the gas right off the bat. That was key for us. The week before against Heritage, we started a little bit slower, and so it was nice to see us get back to what we do. Pounding the football and using our athletes to make plays. I think they had time of possession on us and play total on us in the first half, and I think in the second half we controlled the ball a little bit more, but we had some big plays, and just getting out and putting a physical pounding on the other team is something we pride ourselves on, and we did that early last week.
You opened the season making the long trip up to Bear River, getting that comeback win. How big was that to start the season for you guys, and how was that bus ride home?
The bus ride home was okay. Actually, we stayed the night up there, so we were a little rested the next day coming home, but the guys were excited. All summer long and into fall, I had been a little bit concerned about our team chemistry and how we were meshing as a team. And when we got down 14-0, it really stood out to what type of football team we're going to be. Our guys didn't give up. They didn't start pointing fingers. They kind of galvanized together, and we battled and pulled it out. And that's a good football team. And everything we've done this preseason is gearing us for the late season and taking that long trip. Last year we went 125 miles to Christian Brothers for our playoff game, and I wasn't too happy with that bus ride and the way it panned out. So I figured let's start working on those things early in the season, so when we get to later in the season, we'll be better prepared for that type of stuff.
A big game for your quarterback that night, Juwan Epperson. Talk about the difference between him last year and this year.
Little more mature. A little more comfortable in what he's doing with the football. Has a better understanding of what we're trying to do offensively. Not so much taking a lot on to where he's trying to do everything himself. He's playing more within the offense, and that's what we really want. I mean, he's a weapon, and he does some great things when he's got the football in his hands. But a lot of it last year was ad-libbing or freelancing at times when he can do those same things within the structure of what we're doing.
You got a linebacker, Frank Ginda, that's getting a lot of looks from some big-time schools. Talk about what makes him special.
Frank's work ethic is what separates him apart from everyone else. His work ethic and his goals. He's set himself up to accomplish something. I think in 8th grade he started writing down his goals and what he wanted to be as a high school football player and how he wanted to play college football. He's just one of those rare guys that you run across once every generation that is laser focused on his task at hand and what he needs to do both on the field, in the classroom, and in the weight room. And he's relentless when it comes to the pursuit of all that. He's got a plan and he won't be stopped.
You guys got a challenging non-conference schedule to get ready for WAC play. Talk about how this schedule is preparing you guys for league.
I think it prepares us for league. I think it prepares us for later in the season. It's playing tough teams early on kind of galvanizes your mental and physical fortitude, I guess, and prepares you for the battles you have in league and the battles you have late in season when guys are starting to get hurt a little bit and wear down. One thing I think we did really well this offseason was condition and build our strength, and maintaining that through the season's always been an issue, and I think we're on top of that a little bit more than we have been in the years past. So I think playing tough early, I don't schedule for 6 wins, I would rather win first or second in league and get in the playoffs that way and know we played a hell of a schedule early on to prepare us for the physical and mental toughness that comes down the road for us.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about when you get to playoffs, they're not going to be surprised at the level of play when you guys get there.
Exactly, and I think the Heritage game, the trip to Bear River, the Buhach game, all precede that type of stuff going into late in the season. Nothing should be news, nothing should be foreign to us. We should all have an idea of what we're trying to accomplish, and we should be better prepared for it.
Talk about how tough you expect the WAC to be once you get into league play. Patterson's off to a good start. Livingston's kind of surprised some people.
You look around, Patterson's the favorite. Central Valley's starting to build themselves. They've had a coaching change, but I still expect them to have some athletes in play. Livingston's been a huge surprise. They're doing well, and the new coach has kind of hit the ground running and taken off with the program. And people are talking about how they spread the ball around and how tough they are defensively, and that's a concern. And then you've got Los Banos, who's always going to play us tough and going to put a battle in no matter where they're at in the standings, and they've got some playmakers too. So I think it's a pretty tough gauntlet to get through. Mm-hmm. Series is going to throw the football around a little bit. El Capitan's still the new kid on the block we don't really know much about. So I think there's a good mix. I think there are some teams that separate themselves from others in the league. I think our top level teams are all going to battle and compete, where the lower levels are probably a little bit better than they were in the years past, but they're still going to give you a fight, so you can't take anybody lightly.
All right. Well, thanks for being our guest, and good luck this week against Buhach.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it.
All right, let's look at this week's games. Let's start with Merced High. They're playing a rare game on campus, only the second game on campus in school history. It's their homecoming. Talking to some people out there, they're really excited about this matchup, or about playing at home. I went to the game 2 years ago that they played
I'm
down
excited because I get to be a part of it this time.
Yeah, it's really an electric feeling out there with the crowd so close to the players and the team. It should be a fun night, Merced against Enox. I think it's a chance here for Merced to bounce back and really get things going here.
And they're playing an Enox team that's coming in limping a little bit. They're 0-3. They've had a really tough schedule out of the gate, and obviously it gets no easier with Merced.
Yeah, it's like a poor man's Atwater schedule here. We're playing Turlock, Buhach, and Manteca, and now they face Merced.
Yeah, it all comes down to Sean Munoz with them. He's got 539 passing yards, team leader with 178 rushing yards. And I imagine he's got a little chip on his shoulder coming into this one, since Merced's the team that knocked him out for a couple games last season. He was actually pretty effective against them before that happened in that game. He gave them some fits with the option. And the way Merced's defense has struggled, we'll have to see how they can counter that. It's not something they're going to see every day in the CCC.
Yeah, I think if Merced can control the ball, limit the turnovers, I like the Bears here, and I like them big.
Yeah, there's no doubt, especially based off of the early results. They showed they can bounce back quite quickly from a loss before with a good performance, and I think they'll do it again. And I think it's going to be all the more jazzed because they're going to be on campus.
Yeah, I think one thing that Merced has to do is they kind of have to control all that extra energy.
Yeah.
That last game against Downey, they came out and got some personal fouls right away because they were just too amped up, too pumped up for that game. I think they need to control that this game. Let's talk about Buhach against Pacheco. Both teams coming in at 2-1. Like we heard from Coach Snapp, should be a physical game, a fun game. You got Pacheco kind of stepping up here and facing the CCC team, and one that's coming off a game they felt they probably should have won last week.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to this one basically since we saw the schedules come out. Like you said, two physical smash mouth teams that just want to run the ball at you, and they got some big backs to do it. Tackling will not be fun in this game. You got Frank Inda, you got
Kalami Kamoku.
Easy
for me to say.
Justin Stefani for Buhach. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see which defense can step up and kind of alter what the other team's doing offensively. Because to this point, they've both been very successful doing what they like to do.
Yeah, I know Snapp really likes his playmakers here, but I was impressed with what I saw from Buhach Colony. I really think they can be a contender in the CCC. I'm going to go with the Thunder here in a close game.
I think this one may come down to quarterback play with all other things being equal, and I think I'll give the nod to Juwan Epperson and Pacheco here.
All right, some of the other matchups to look at. Golden Valley also has their homecoming game this week. They're facing Stellar Prep, a team that's 1-2, a smaller school with only 19 kids on their roster. I think the Cougars get in the win column here.
Yeah, hopefully they can get off to a good start. It's kind of been something that's plagued them so far. They've had to play from behind a lot, and I imagine that's gotten them out of their game plan more than they'd like. So if they can get out in front early, control the clock, control the ball like they like to do, I think they come out on top.
Atwater heads to Patterson, another tough matchup. Patterson coming off a loss. Atwater lost to Clovis last week. You know, it was funny. I spent some time with Coach Valado before their game on Thursday, and he was talking about, you know, they had a kid that was making his first start at I think right tackle, and they basically had to tell him, you know, this is a kid that was kind of on the, not a practice squad, but
right.
He was on the scout team basically for his whole career. And so here he's making his first start, and they wanted to, you know, clean slate. They got him, Valado got him new pads and a new helmet. Just said, hey, I want you to come back with you're a new player now. You're a starter, and you got to have that starter mentality. So, you know, Atwater's kind of banged up. I know that Isaac Perez, their center against Central Catholic, he dislocated his thumb in that game and just didn't want to come off the field. They just had him put it back in place, got back out there, and kept on playing. And Atwater needs those kind of kids, that kind of effort to try and stay close with Patterson here, but I like the Tigers.
I mean, obviously they're going to have to win a defensive battle at this point in time. They haven't been able to put much offense together, 20 points through 3 games. They haven't been blown out, really, except for Central Catholic either, against some pretty quality opponents. So I think they're going to be capable of keeping this one close, but I don't know that they got enough points on the road here.
The red-hot Livingston Wolves face Mariposa. This could be an interesting matchup this week.
I like what Livingston's doing. I like what they're doing defensively. I think I'm going to go ahead and give them the nod here.
Yeah, they're mixing it up. They hand the ball off to a lot of people, so they don't really have that one main running back. But whatever they're doing is working. They're getting some wins. A nice win over LeGrand last week, and I think it continues this week against Mariposa.
Bringing a lot of pressure, too. I think they got like over 3 sacks a game at this point in time.
And then the West Side War, both Dos Palos and Los Banos coming in after a loss last week. Los Banos kind of had a shootout with Davis, ended up losing a close one there. I like the Tigers in this matchup.
It's hard to know what to expect. It doesn't feel like either team has found their stride just yet. I think it's going to be one of those years where it's a super competitive game and, you know, probably comes down to the last possession kind of thing. I think I'll give, based off of the athletes, I'll give Los Banos the edge also.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for our show this week. Enjoy the games.